here's Brody Brazil.
So welcome back to another Rob Manfred interpretation video as it relates to the Oakland A's and Howard Terminal and potential relocation to Las Vegas. I mean, haven't we already done this YouTube video before? Are you noticing a repetitive cycle here, whereas baseball's commissioner goes out, holds a press conference with national media, and he addresses a bunch of different topics, but of course, he will inevitably get asked about Howard Terminal. He will inevitably give us a handful of words, maybe some sentences, not even a full page or paragraphs, but just enough for all of us to go ahead and craft a headline like this, where he said in Arizona the other day at the Cactus League Media Day session that the A's, quote, focus has been more on Las Vegas than it has been on Oakland since he last held a session like this in December. Now, I'll go through everything that he said. Most of it, quite honestly, is not even new information. I mean, if you've been paying attention to this situation and how things develop on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis, you understand that he's kind of just summarizing things. But if you're not in tune with this project and this process on a daily basis, some of this stuff you may actually read too much into or understand it as new information when in fact it's not. There are a few new things to take away here, but again, most of it is repetitive in nature. Now, the first comment, I believe, was a response to the question like, well, who's the frontrunner? As of right now, who has the edge? Is it Oakland or is it a move to Las Vegas? He says, quote, look, I think the best way for me to answer that is to say, I think that the focus since I spoke to you in December really has been on Las Vegas. Now, that last time he spoke that he's talking about in December, that was at baseball's winter meetings in San Diego. I was there. He held a closed-door session with baseball writers. There was no TV cameras, and it was rather intimate. And he addressed a variety of different topics surrounding baseball, but obviously was asked about the A's and Oakland and Howard Terminal and Las Vegas. And at that point, on that day, he really gave us no new information other than the Coliseum was well outdated and that there had been some roadblocks in Oakland and that change was upcoming for Oakland. And at that point, they hadn't even inaugurated a new mayor. Shea had been elected, but not taken office yet in the city of Oakland. So again, I mean, this is the headline that's catching people's eyes, the focus, but you'll also notice the words I think in there twice. Look, I think the best way for me to answer that. And then he says, I think that the focus since I spoke to you in December has been on Las Vegas. Again, this is what we're forced to do. We don't get much. We don't get body language with this. We don't get it on camera. So what do you mean by you think? Like, why not just say the focus has been on Las Vegas? The words I think leave maybe a little bit just too much question in the air. And I'm not saying that he's wrong about this or misleading us in any way, but how sure are you of this? How definitive do you want to be about it? He goes on to say, quote, there are still conversations going on between the A's and the city of Oakland. I think the mayor needed a little time, newly elected, to get settled. Here we go with, I think again. And that's to be expected, right? If we're going back to his first statement about the A's and their talks with the city of Oakland, you knew there was going to be a dormant period, right? Like the last time he spoke, it was literally 2 months ago. It was December, was it like 3rd, 4th, and 5th, something like that? From then until now, Oakland City Council, the mayor included, everybody went on a winter break for the second half of December. Then in the beginning part of January, Mayor Shea was inaugurated. She took office along with 2 other brand new city council members. And Oakland has obviously had some other issues to sort through. The police chief was terminated just a couple days ago. So there are other issues and there are some backlogs with the city of Oakland and this nature of transition. So to say that the focus for the A's has been on Las Vegas is also not shocking if there's not much happening in Oakland at the moment. But going back to this quote, I think the mayor needed a little time. Well, we could all understand that and expect it. So nothing here is necessarily new information or shocking information. Heck, I talked to Shea back in late October. This was even before the election, before she knew she'd even be mayor. She admitted straight up that there was going to be a bit of a lag with the onboarding process of brand new people so that they could reacclimate, so that they could reposition, and then can continue communications with the A's in terms of negotiations. So again, a lot of I thinks, more I thinks here, but nothing necessarily surprising with that comment or quote. He goes on, the city of Oakland has been really caught up in trying to work their way through these funding issues that I'm sure you've read about. Well, not only read about, Rob, but watched here on YouTube or on any other medium where people are discussing this situation. But yeah, I mean, that's obvious too. The funding issues are directly related to infrastructure, right? There's never been a question about this ballpark, privately financed, but the big bottleneck right now, the big holdup is the cost of infrastructure. Who's going to pay for everything that surrounds this project and the 55 acres at Howard Terminal? The hard part for the city of Oakland is how they're getting this money and the fact that the target goal keeps changing and moving. The city of Oakland has actually already secured more than $350 million towards infrastructure money for this project. At one point, that was like 90% of the way to all the infrastructure cost. But over time, and with inflation and estimates, that number has gone up. Now, the city of Oakland continues on their agenda of trying to secure more money. And this, by the way, is not coming from Oakland. This is coming from the state of California, as well as the federal government. That's the route they've chosen to do this. It's not an easy route. It's like trying to go to your favorite college, but only on scholarship money by not spending any of your own money. It's possible, but it's difficult. And this is definitely the case. Oakland is trying to sift through the way to do this. This is what they suggested back in summer of 2021. This is the way they wanted to do it, and it's not easy. And again, the parameters and that end goal of money, we don't even know the amount. I said they've secured $350. Maybe the number they need right now is closer to $500 million and still going north. But again, as for this quote, what's new about this? If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know this is like the main issue. He goes on, quote, I think the focus in Oakland has been on the funding, particularly of the infrastructure side of the project. Okay, thank you, Rob. You're stating what most of us already know. Now, again, if you're new to this situation, if this is a new topic where you're not as well versed on it, maybe this is relevant and you read too much into this. That needs to get solved in order for that process to go forward. I don't disagree. That has been the biggest issue right now. There's also some other things like a development agreement, which we'll dive into momentarily, but this is the big one, the money and the gap that needs to be bridged, obviously. Quote, I don't think they are in agreement on the affordable housing issue. The threshold issue right now, I think, in Oakland is how to handle the funding for the infrastructure. A very disjointed sentence there. I mean, there's two major things to look at. The second half is repeating what he said before. The threshold issue, right? The priority, the big issue is infrastructure funding. How can Oakland go from $350 million to however much they need? Where can they secure that money through state and federal grants and opportunities? But let me go to the first sentence there. I don't think they are in agreement on the affordable housing issue. That's, I don't want to say new information, but the fact that that has come to light, and maybe that's a reason why the development agreement does not exist yet. I think the infrastructure money, you can't really have an agreement without knowing you can secure financing for the project. So there is that, but certainly a disagreement on affordable housing would also delay or halt or pause any kind of development agreement. So I do want to point this out. Of all the things that the commissioner said in his quotes, like that right there is also a priority. He's saying it's not the threshold issue, but it's a priority, and it's relatively resurfaced information. We've not heard much lately about the disagreement on that topic, but he's definitely suggesting it. More on affordable housing later on in this video. We continue. Now, this is not a quote. This is dialogue from the San Francisco Chronicle. Manfred has not yet communicated with Oakland Mayor Shea. Interesting. Baseball's number one guy has not talked to Oakland's number one person. Shea has only been in office about 5 to 6 weeks as I record this right here, right now. And in fact, her spokesperson, Julie Edwards, said, quote, to our knowledge, he has not directly reached out. So again, when you read that in the newspaper, Manfred has not yet communicated with Oakland Mayor Shea. Your initial reaction would be to say, what, he can't get a hold of her? He's definitely trying to reach her, isn't he? He's reached out. Well, Oakland Mayor spokesperson Julie Edwards says no, he has not directly reached out. And then there's this. Everything I've had out of the city of Oakland was as a result of conversations with John Fisher, A's owner, about their conversations. I'm sure I will speak with Shea at some point. I just haven't done that yet. So this confirms what initially sounds like a bad deal and there's maybe some communication issues here or two people are avoiding each other. Shea camp says, we haven't talked to him. He's saying, I just haven't done that yet. Again, if you're not familiar with this situation and both sides, you might see this all as, this is taking a turn for the worse. But in reality, there is a lack of communication going on here. I wish it was better. I wish there was already that connection, but he hasn't done it yet. And he's sure he will, at some point, talk to Shea. Okay, so let's get to that sooner than later. I hope. I also realize the new mayor has a lot on her plate, onboarding with the process and getting caught up to speed on everything else. But it is kind of that weird game of cat and mouse. Who's supposed to reach out to who first and when? So with all that said, let's just do the big takeaways here. What did we learn from, 7 or 8 total sentences? And again, I wish we had more to go on. I wish Commissioner Manfred would accept my invitation to do a straightforward interview on the project and the process. I'll share it again. I was denied for that opportunity back in December when I was in San Diego. I am going to try again here in the coming weeks and months ahead of baseball season. We'll see what the commissioner's office says, if they will grant me and us that opportunity. Here are the big takeaways. I will give Commissioner Manfred a lot of credit because he's one of the few actually doing interviews about Howard Terminal lately or in the A's situation. Obviously, the A's have been relatively silent. And I've also reached out to Mayor Shea. Now, she and I spoke at the end of 2022. She said, going forward, I would love to speak with you open and candidly on camera about this process. I did put in a request last week for an interview. I've yet to hear back, but I look forward to that opportunity. Again, I know she's busy. I'm patient. This is a big deal, but I would love to talk to her about it too soon as well. But yeah, again, the commissioner, one of the few, in fact, really the last high-level quotes or any type of public comment we've had on this was the last thing he said more than 2 months ago back in December. Second big takeaway here is the fact that we are 5+ weeks into Shea in office. What were we expecting? That this would be her number one issue, that she would already have a deal struck? We do need to give this some time. She's not Libby Schaff. It's not to say that she views the project entirely different, but she's a different person. She's got council members of maybe, a little bit of a different group, but maybe they see the new mayor as a different thought process in making progress here. Who knows? But all I'm understanding here is that she's still relatively early in everything. So to think that Oakland was not going to skip a beat in their talks with the A's, you had to know there was going to be this kind of delay and setback. And quite honestly, in the similar way that the state of Nevada has a new governor, and that new governor views public funding for sports stadiums a totally different way than the old one did. So you had to know that there was going to be kind of a speed bump here as it relates to the political side of it. Now, moving on to the affordable housing issue, the fact that there are still some sticking points on this, it's not terribly surprising. I mean, this is a number that is to be negotiated, and the fact that the A's are are doing it. And there, I believe, is a legal threshold of how much affordable housing you need to come up with for a new project of this kind. There's a certain percentage. And I think it's even on-site, maybe even off-site as well too. But what I'm very curious about, I know housing is a big issue for the city of Oakland. And with the 3,000 projected units that are brand new, that will be brand new to Oakland, they want to get as many of them as they can under the affordable housing tag. Now, that makes the project more complicated from the developer side of it, clearly. But the real issue here is, why is there not a legal number? And so long as you follow the legal number, like black and white, that's acceptable. That is a number already set out by either state, local, or federal entities. Like, here's what you need to do. Here's what you are required to do. Now, granted, is it better if you can do more? Of course. Is it maybe seen as doing the minimum amount if that's all you do? Yes, but that's what you're required to do. That's what the law says you need to do. This is a negotiation where I kind of don't understand how there can be a whole lot of back and forth when there already is an established threshold of affordable housing. Clearly, it's going to be part of the project. You want to do it right. But are you expected to double or triple that number because that's what Oakland really needs? Again, this is all part of the negotiation, right? I understand that part of it too. That's what Oakland is going to press for in this project. But what is realistic here? And if you're Oakland, how about this? What if I told you you can either get 500 affordable housing units out of this or none? What would you take? 500, right? You don't want to be stingy about this to the point that the opportunity for 500 and all that tax revenue goes away because you wanted 700. So that's one thing for me that's just, it's curious. If there's already an established threshold and standard, if you're hovering above it or close to it, I'm curious why that's not acceptable. So let's talk about the focus in Las Vegas. Okay, if there has been a focus since early December in Las Vegas more than Oakland, what has that focus done or accomplished? And yes, I've seen it lately, a couple different things. I've seen that third site pop up. Reportedly, the site of the Rio Hotel off the Strip, west of the Strip, is now in play as a potential stadium location. I've also seen that, the A's have maybe set up a satellite office in Las Vegas for their operations down there. I've also seen that there are some new registered lobbyists that would, go for the Oakland A's and their endeavors in the state of Nevada. I've seen that too. I've seen all that. So granted, if that's the focus we're talking about, again, I'm just curious about what has the focus produced. I don't know that we still have a site or a location down there, and we could overnight. We could tomorrow. We could by the time you watch this video in a week. Maybe that has changed. But as of this point, I'm just curious what the focus has done. I'm asking, not rhetorically, I don't know. I really don't know. Infrastructure money is a problem. There's no question about that. But at some point, I think we have to move and evolve past the problem and wonder, if you're the city of Oakland, like, what are some solutions here? Could the county of Alameda jump in on some of this infrastructure gap? They're going to get a lot of tax money, extra tax money from this project that it generates on its own. The tax money doesn't happen without the project. Are there other investors? Is there another creative way to get this infrastructure money? Which is not going to be an impossible amount. It's going to be a sizable amount, an intimidating amount, potentially, but not an impossible amount. So are there any other solutions? Are we just going to keep looking at it and say, well, that's going to be hard. That's going to be hard. That's going to be impossible. What's another way to get around this? I'm not a finances guy, but I'm not hearing much in the way of creativity, more so just reality. And then let me close it with this. The saga continues. There's Oakland. There's Las Vegas. There's things happening in both markets at different speeds and at, different rhythms. At what point, if you're the A's, do you kind of risk losing like losing both markets, losing whether that's interest, passion, ability. Like you're going to lose something in both markets so long as they're both in play, they're both being discussed. In Oakland, people are saying, well, is this only a matter of time before the A's leave? And in Las Vegas, they're wondering, is this only a matter of us getting played as leverage for what has made progress in Oakland? And at some point, right? Like, let's be very clear about this. It's going to start hurting both sides of the equation for the A's, no matter if they're going to continue in Oakland or move to Las Vegas. It's not ideal to have people kind of on hold or in this limbo status forever where they don't know. And granted, there's business. These are negotiations. This is important. This is billions of dollars we're talking about here. I would not want to make decisions on a whim at that total and those values. And this is a generational project, and it's hard to do so. I get it. Like I'm very patient, and I feel like I've been very patient in the process. But I'm also here to observe and say that the average person who is a customer, would be a customer of baseball in Oakland or Las Vegas at some point, they didn't go to a movie that lasted 7 hours and 22 minutes. No, they want to go see a 1 hour and 47 blockbuster, and hopefully it has a happy ending, right? But at this case, there's been so many twists and turns. Who sticks around for a movie that goes past the 4-hour mark, right? Not everybody. So we've interpreted once again the statements of MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred. He says the A's focus has been more on Las Vegas than Oakland in the last couple months. You know where I stand on desires and what I hope happens. But I don't read into this as particularly new information, or at this point, if it's the most impactful thing he's ever said. Although, I do see the language, I do see how it stands out, and it's a bit of the truth from his perspective. So let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. Thanks for being here on the channel. Thumbs up on the video if you liked it, and subscribe to this channel for more.